Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Ops and Regs. We're going to begin this meeting with the karakia. Whakatakatiho ki te uru, whakatakatiho ki te tonga, kia mā ki niki niki ita, kia mā taratara ki tai, kia hia ki ana ti tua, e tio, e puka, e huhu, tutu o whiti wakawawa, tina, huie, tai kie. And we have Councillor Cram on Zoom, and apologies from Councillors Cloak, McIntyre, Littlewood, and from Phil Muir.
I'm here on Zoom. I'm just an apology for
and Charlotte's here on Zoom too. I beg your pardon. Craig, I thought you might like to acknowledge the passing of Councillor Lean.
I would actually. A lot has been said and written about Daisy the last few days. I noticed, I didn't get to read it all, but there's a big feature in the newspaper as well. So we've all known Daisy, we all know Daisy, and some of us have known him for a very long time. So you've all got your own stories and memories and feelings about him. So I'm not going to share any of mine at the moment, but I think it is worth noting that he spent 50 years as a local government politician, something he was really, really proud of, and 33 of them were here. So I think we should just take a minute of silence and just reflect on our own relationship and memories of Daisy.
Thank you. So we will now begin the meeting with confirmation of the minutes of the Ops and Regs Committee, 29 April 2025. I move that they be accepted as a true and correct record. Anaru, are you happy to second? Yes. All in favour?
No.
I should have also moved that the apologies of Councillors Cloak, McIntyre, Littlewood and Mr Muir be accepted. Do I have a mover? Benita? Seconder? Donna? All in favour? Aye. And we move now to resource consents issued under delegated authority. Leah?
Morena, can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
Morena, I'm in Tamaki Makaurau at the moment, so zooming in from Auckland. Between 1st of April and 11th of May, we issued 24 discharge permits, 14 land use consents and 4 water permits. So the applications in progress are 225 total applications, of which 166 are replacements. Applications we've received are 147 non-dairy applications, and we've made a decision on 253 non-dairy applications, processing 106 consents more than we received. 350 consents have issued as of April this year, compared to 282 this time last year. And on the backlog, as at February 2025, there was 215 non-dairy consents on the backlog. As at 30th of April this year, this is reduced to 169. Just wanted to highlight one consent on our backlog that was from MPDC. So this was continue using Aware in the Huatoki stream. As part of the processing of the resource consent for the weir structure in the stream, we needed to undertake an environmental assessment, but also have a clear understanding of the purpose of the activity for which consent was sought. So in this case, the weir structure presented a partial and at times complete barrier to fish passage, especially under low flow conditions. And although the applicant had attempted retrofitting ramps, bat rope, baffles, they were only partially successful and still had fish passage barriers. So as the weir appeared to serve no clear operational or functional need, through the consent process, they decided that they would remove it. So this was a really good outcome and it shows how the process can lead to improved environmental outcomes when there's a structure that doesn't have a particular use or a particular function and still provides a barrier to fish. And that's it from me.
Thank you, Leah. Does anyone have any questions for Leah?
Yes, Madam Chair.
Neil.
I noticed this particular matter that you've just raised here, and I attended the WA seminar, which was held in New Plymouth last week, and they pointed out there that there were in Taranaki 10,000 fish pass issues, that's to say culverts and structures like you're mentioning here. The question is, how many of these sorts of things may require actual resource consents to get them removed? It seems if there's that many, is there some sort of cut-off point or something that someone's thought about in that case?
Yeah, it's a good question. I don't have any understanding of exactly how many fish passage barriers there are, but I do know that anything that has any structure that's come in after the plan requires a resource consent. And part of that, even with our old plan, it's always required to have fish passage provisions. Where it doesn't and it goes through the consenting process, they're required to then upgrade the structure to allow for fish passage. So with the consents that we grant, there may be a very few small scenarios where there are natural barriers already in place, like cliffs, and if the structure is very close to that and it's mainly climbing species, that would also be taken into consideration.
All right, well, I guess just asking the question further, just the point that I'm sure there isn't an immediate plan to people wanting to get rid of 10,000 different things, but if there was a significant number, it could result in quite a number of consents.
Madam Chair, a couple of comments. Firstly, there's an item on the policy and planning agenda about fish passages, so you might want to raise your same questions with all relevant technical people here. And I also thought in Finbar, the government are talking about, was that in that report, removing the requirement for consents to remove fish passages as one of the proposals for consultation.
Through you, Chair. So one of the proposals around consultation is around in the National Environmental Standards for Freshwater, it's the rules for building new culverts. So they're proposing to tinker with that to make that process more straightforward, but you would still need to provide the fish passage. And you're right, there's a paper in the policy and planning agenda that puts forward options for our approach for dealing with all the structures that are already there. Yep. And the policy team will speak more to this up in the policy and planning meeting, but the general crux of our approach is we want to make it as easy as possible for people to remove those barriers. So you're not, you want people to be freeing up the river rather than spending too much time on a consent. So, but they can speak to the detail of that more later.
Anything else for Leah? Donna?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Just that there has been some work. There was another one taken out on the Oyo probably about 3 weeks ago as well that was working with Fred's team. So between TCC and Fred's team. So it was a small one, but it had made quite a big difference to on the eDNA, what was below the weir and what was above was, there was quite a difference. So it's out now as well. But there's some good, the council's doing some great work to work with people and to make a difference. So well done.
Thank you, Donna. Anyone for any more? If not, I will move that we receive the schedule of resource consents. Richard, I feel sure you wish to second that. All in favour?
No.
And moving to the next item, which is incidents and compliance. And that's a matter for you, Jared.
Yes, thank you. Kia ora, good morning. Through you, Chair, this report, Incident Compliance Monitoring Non-Compliances Enforcement Summary, it covers the period of 4 April to 15 May this year. In that, we have 50 incidents. 23 of them were compliant, 17 were non-compliant, and of that, there's 10 updates. In relation to compliance monitoring non-compliance, there's only 6 new non-compliances in that area and 15 updates. With this one, there's some matters that have come through that we discussed at the last meeting, the wetland cases have come through. So you'll see that there's 4 cases of working in or usually within very close proximity to wetlands. There's a 10-metre setback for earthworks, so they've come through on the agenda now. There's also, you'll see the other common incidents we've got at the moment are forestry slash, and that's the forestry team routine compliance monitoring. They're out there regularly and they're really trying to hammer home the requirement to keep slash out of streams and outside the 5% AEP. So sometimes the slash isn't in the stream necessarily, but it's on the bank where it would mobilise during significant rainfall events. We only have power to remove them outside of 1 in 20. There's no power to go beyond that, but the non-compliances, 3 of them are related to the deposition of slash, and 1 of them is related to earthworks. On another note from last meeting, there was some concern expressed around the odours at Coulson Road. At this stage, 14 March is the last complaint that we've had there, so works to mitigate the odour appear to be positive at this stage. We'll keep monitoring it, but there was a short, sharp burst there of odours, and it's looking like it might be getting that back under control, which is positive. And the last thing I want to talk about is the Waitotara pub fire. You might have seen that in there. So with all big fires or significant events like that in the region, Taranaki Regional Council are notified, and we respond to every single fire like that. There's 2 reasons for that. One is obviously firewater. What is the contaminant? Where's it going? Enters the stormwater system. Where's the stormwater system come out? What's it doing to the stream? It's not often about a culpability. It's about how us as a council can help mitigate the effects. Well, letting the firefighters do their job, but us mitigating the effects of their firewater. The other side of that is Taranaki Regional Council is engaged in an asbestos liaison protocol, which Clinton Carter, who will talk to you later about Mount Messenger, sits on that. And that's an agreement between regional councils, district councils, Te Whatuora and WorkSafe. And TRC is the conduit between all of those. So we will get called, we will go down and assess it. We will pull in what agency needs to come in, and then it gets handed over in a formal manner to whatever agency. So for Waitotara Fire, we went down there, spoke with fire, spoke with the landowner, looked at the water quality, confirmed the asbestos, and then worked with STDC, handed it over to them, who declared it a dangerous building, and then Te Whatuora come in and do the health side of it. And we have landed with that conduit role by default, I think, by being the most functionable after our service that actually answers the phone and gets down there and sorts it out. And because of that, we've by default become the go-to, and then we disseminate the information. So that's why the Waitotara. Happy to answer any further questions.
Anyone got questions for Jared? Neil?
Yes, and this is perhaps not about one you've mentioned so much, but I see once again that the Fonterra group have got several little examples of where failure on administrative documentation problems. Now, at the last council meeting when we had this, again, it was mentioned and it was suggested that it was more or less a continuing thing that had happened, and it was some suggestion was made that further representation to Fonterra at maybe a higher level was necessary. We always joke about how Mr. McLeod took these people into the study like a headmaster and gave them a bit of a lecture, and that did seem to be effective. But I think if that's a persistent problem, they're a big company, they're a leader in the whole industry. We need to set an example of them actually doing it, and for them, they've got the staff, they've got the people to do it. So I think we just can't kind of just give them a polite response. We have to actually just make it a bit stronger to get them to always do what they should do.
Yeah, these 2 reports were oversights by the company as far as not getting them submitted. They're not new incidents. They've been in here for some period now. They are getting resolved. Unfortunately, for one of those reports, the consultant was unavailable. He started the report. He was unavailable for a period, and I understand he's come back online now. so that he can complete that report. And that's what's been the delay in the final report being submitted. The first one was done, it's being reviewed by the science team here to make sure it's of sufficient content. The final one is a delay due to unforeseen circumstances ultimately.
Oh, we don't want to make too fine a point of it, but again, as I said, there's absolutely no reason, and the excuse that somebody wasn't there or something isn't good enough, really. They have to do what they're supposed to do.
Agreed with that.
Anyone else?
I have a
Mike.
conflict with Ravensdown, Chair.
Richard?
Just on the forestry one, Jared, obviously I note that the the different companies involved. So is that more of an industry issue around education? Because these stands have been in place for a while now.
Look, I think it's a couple of things. The forestry regulations are difficult to enforce. Slash has to be kept outside of a 1 in 20 flood event. But there is permission. The Act does allow you, the Act says you cannot put slash in that area. And then it goes on to say, but if you do put slash in that area, you must remove it in a timely manner unless it's unsafe to do so. So some of them were calling them on the first bit about you're not meant to put it there because we believe it didn't need to go there. But it is a tricky thing. And so the guys are working hard now to reiterate that with all the foresters, that the first option is to not deposit slash in those areas, and it's a second option of removing it, not a rather than just letting it fall where it falls and then removing something.
Sure. So do we need to maybe look at when you issue that first yes consent form, do you actually need to spell it out in that space?
Yeah, 100%.
Because if there's some interpretation on the ground, how do you stop?
Yeah. So each forestry block will submit to us a harvesting plan, and that's the bit where we have to start tightening up in that harvesting plan and identifying areas where slash can't go because it can't be removed, identifying areas where slash may fall because of how the trees were planted 25 years ago, and actually compartmentalising that site to use those different sectors of legislation.
Donna?
I just, great job on the forestry, Jared, because I'd heard a couple of comments about this slash as well. So I'm really glad you're sorting that. Excellent results again on both incidents and compliance, non-compliance has come down. So, gosh, that's the lowest in 5 years? Is it the lowest we've seen? It's really low, isn't it?
In the recent future, it's really low, and I guess I'm always a little bit nervous with that, but what's positive is it's trending down. It's not a left field occurrence. It's slowly been tracking down each year. And I think on the back of that, I think a lot of that credit is our officers that go out there and are dealing with it firmly with one hit, and we seem to be getting less repetitive matters. They're managing to deal with them and jump on them and either work with them or jump on them quite firmly and resolving them.
I noticed there was a few where they'd let the council know as well. So, I think that's a good sign. Hey, the other thing is it lack of maintenance MPDC when was it wastewater?
That one was a fat blockage. The wastewater network in the New Plymouth district especially is a very, very large network, and they do have to maintain their infrastructure to avoid blockages. I think fat blockages and things like that are always going to happen from time to time, and it's about how quick they notify that and respond to that. In this case, it was one of those fat blockages. I think what is probably pleasing, touch wood, with New Plymouth District Council is we're seeing less accidental overflows from the pump stations. The pump stations are slowly getting more and more infrastructure, more alarms, secondary pumps, standby generators and things. So we're getting less discharges from the pump stations, but those fat blockages and roots getting in the network and that are still popping up.
Thanks, Jared. Great work.
Anyone for any more? If not, can I have someone move that the summary and the memorandum be received. Benita moves and Donna seconds. All in favour? Aye. And we are now moving to item 8, summary of dairy farm synthetic nitrogen application. And Jared, you're going to introduce James.
Yeah, so this is James Cookson. He's a dairy primary industry lead in our team, and so he will introduce himself and take you through the outcome from the recent NCAP submission period.
James, the floor is yours.
Kia ora. Through the chair, I am James Cookson, Program Lead of Primary Industries for the Compliance Department. I've been in the role for 12 years, and part of those duties is to coordinate the synthetic nitrogen reporting. So today I'm presenting the report on the progress Council has made in implementing the synthetic nitrogen reporting. So out of the 1,468 dairy farm operations we have in Taranaki, 1,436 farms reported their nitrogen use, which equates to a 97.8%, which is a lot larger than last year's 73%. Out of those reported, there were 185 that reported that they do not use synthetic nitrogen, which gave us an overall average of 95 kgs per hectare per year of nitrogen used on farms. We had 17 of those 1,436 exceed the limit. A council officer contacted those parties, and it was discovered that the exceedance of the limit was due to data entry error. The ones that did exceed the limit attributed to wet season and low grass growth. All those that did contact confirmed that in the upcoming year that they will reduce their nitrogen use. Just to note that the ones that we found exceeded previous season had all fell below the NCAP limit, and so the ones that exceed this year is the first time. So Taranaki has made significant improvement in submissions compared to 2021, where there was only 510, to 2022 to 23, there was only 1,103. So it's been a huge success and has put Taranaki in one of the highest in the country for submitting NCAP data. So moving on for this upcoming reporting year, a lot of communication is going to be going out to remind farmers that it's time to record, to give them the information on what platforms to use. Also, there'll be email drops and physical letter drops included with that to keep people going and keep them engaged. We'll also be working with the various stakeholders in the primary sector to ensure that there's good engagement, and that will include the likes of Fonterra, Balance, and Ravensdown. Council will consider acceptable enforcement actions if dairy farmers do not meet the cut-off date, which is July 2025. At the most, that will include, at the least, that will include letters to those who have not complied. So to achieve our 97.8%, Council undertook a proactive move where those people that did not meet those compliance dates, letters were sent out. And that was in August 2024. Following that, more letters were sent out with the invoices for compliance monitoring for those who still not sent their data to Council. So then in March, we did an analysis of what had been left, and it was left with 215 farms that had not reported. So compliance officers contacted each farmer to make sure that they would comply with the legislation, which once again showed a great result and gave us that 97.8%. And that's pretty much where we are with it at the moment.
James, I think I can say on behalf of all of us, we'd like you to extend our compliments to the rest of your team for such an outstanding result.
Thank you.
It demonstrates really clear communication you must be having with them, and communication that's been accepted by the farmers based on the fact that so many of them are voluntarily returning that information as required.
Thank you.
Outstanding effort. Neil.
James, again, congratulations on getting what you've done. I understand that you are able to pick up a lot of this information from the fertiliser companies too. And it would be really good if we didn't have to send out vast numbers of letters and whatever, if in fact, and I understand the fertiliser companies are cooperative and happy and willing to do this, so it would be good if we could get to an automated kind of approach where we send out a instruction and a large part of them just come in automatically from the suppliers of these various nitrates. And the second thing is you are talking about some exercises in actual improvement, and I understand that obviously Dairy New Zealand and others would regard this excessive amount of nitrate that some people are using as extraordinarily old-fashioned and a complete waste of money. So I wondered whether they're holding various seminars and things about this, so is it possible to get them to actually promote the idea of keeping a nitrate at a reasonable, sensible level instead of just going, crazy?
Yes, and that is happening, yeah, and a lot of the discussion groups I go to and I attend, there is that message there to reduce it, because it is not really economically viable to be exceeding even 200. It's not worth it. So, and we have seen nationally a reduce in the purchase of synthetic nitrogen. So with the companies like Dairy NZ and Fonterra and Open Country and that, the message is getting out there and it's consistent and it seems to be working.
Just going on from that, through you, Chair, the fertiliser companies are really engaged and are really keen to help. And if they're the suppliers and the spreaders, it does make it a lot easier for the farmer. There is still a little link that we found, a little bit of a chink in the armour where it's all personal information, so those farmers have to authorise that release of that. But it's a two-step process for one of the companies, and we had an issue where farmers thought they'd done it all and they thought they'd submitted it, but then they actually have to go back in the next day and finalise it. So there's a couple of little chinks here we're working with, but the fertiliser companies are good. It's just that because it's personal information, that farm still has to engage with that company to ensure that data is released. And they've all got the information because it's either they're recording it for Fonterra, they're recording it for their farm advisors, they're recording it for Open Country. It's all there. Putting it into the format.
It'd be hoped that the fertiliser companies, you may have some advice on it, Mike, would be kind of like when you sign your contract to take whatever it is you're getting, that you actually tick a little box to say that these compliances can be done.
Well, mate, Chair, the farmers get all that information from fertiliser companies on an annual basis, so it's easily obtained. And you're right, there is an integration between Fonterra and ourselves on 81 and those sort of people to transfer that information, but you're right, it has to be tick box so that the farmer, because it's confidential information, that they approve that, but it's all there, it's all data, easy access, it's no issue.
Hey, Richard, and then Donna. Donna, by the way, if you click on the icon with the little hand,
Well,
it will make a wee hand for you.
I would, and because I'm getting sick of holding my
Put your
hand
hand
up.
up.
I can't damn well find it.
No, we can see your hands, but we thought we'd give your hands a little rest if you just click on the icon. But anyway,
I can
Richard
see it
first,
now.
then Donna.
Wait, my part is just around what is the barrier for that last 2%? Because I agree you're doing an awesome job, but how do you engage those last 2%? Are they just unwilling to, or is it?
As far as exceeding?
Yeah, sorry, the 2%, so we got the return of what, 90?
97.8.
97.8.
Oh, they
how
haven't
do we
submitted.
get
Sorry.
the last 2%?
Yeah, to be fair, those ones that haven't submitted, we have been engaging with them and it has been ongoing, and you just sometimes get to a point of frustration. It's actually almost physically sit by them and do it. And because at the time of the year that you are recording, a lot of these guys are quite busy as it is. So I think we're just going to have to keep working on it and keep just at them, I guess, and just basically hold their hand through it and try and get that 100%. I don't know if we'll achieve it, but we'll just don't know.
Donna, well done with the little hand, and it's your turn.
Hey, look at that technology. Hey, two things. One, I've just done my reporting in Hawkeye, which is part of Ravensdown. It is really good. And the Hawkeye team, the 0800 number is really good. I just wonder, James, if you should be able to put them back to the Hawkeye or Ravensdown and Balance rather than you doing it. I don't think that's our function. And you know, those companies, that's their bread and butter. They should be able to do that for the customers. So if there's a way you can take them, maybe find out, have a key person or something you can take those people back to, that might help. But yeah, because you do an amazing job, but yeah, I don't think you should have to do that. I think that's what the fertilizer companies are for. Sorry, Mike, but and Ravensdown do a great job, and they are really helpful from my own personal experience.
Just make that clear. The fertiliser companies supply that, Donna, both companies. It's the farmers not putting it through to the regional council. That's a problem.
Yeah, they've got, the farmers
Yeah,
got
yeah.
to
They've got
authorise
it,
you
but
providing
they-
the information.
Yeah, and we
Hey,
do
but-
work. Yeah, we do work with the fertiliser companies. We have key people that we use, quite a number of them, and they have the same frustrations as us. It's just actually physically getting to sometimes do it, sit with them, and it is just that, like you said, that last 2% or so that we struggle with.
I think that's an amazing, what was it, 97 point or 98%? It's pretty huge. It's pretty good.
And it's also particularly impressive given the improvement on last year.
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
that's epic.
Yeah, and the government is reviewing the synthetic nitrogen within its freshwater amendments. So we could see a slight change, and it may work to change the better. They are looking at possibly not requiring farmers to produce receipts, and then also shifting the recording period to within the actual farming calendar, which I think will make a huge difference. I think we get a lot more uptake because of the time of year that we do record is quite a stressful time for farmers, where it's spring, it's calving. And I think from there it will be positive.
Thank you. And if there's no further questions, can I have someone move that we receive and note the report? Mike to move and Dion to second. All in favour?
Aye.
And let's move now to the next item on the agenda, which is the Key Native Ecosystem Program. Lee. Good morning.
I'm here to talk to the item about the Key Native Ecosystem Program. So since the 1st of July, we have added 8 new KNEs to the inventory, and the inventory is a list of regionally significant ecological sites in the region, and it is voluntary, so it requires landowner approval. It's non-statutory and non-regulatory. So those 8 new KNEs cover 186 hectares, and it takes the total on the KNE inventory to 398 hectares. And they cover approximately 132,626 hectares in the region. Of those sites, council biodiversity plans have been prepared with the landowners for 253 sites. 320 KNEs, over nearly 24,000 hectares, are partially or completely privately owned, and that represents 16% of the privately owned Indigenous vegetation in the region. And you'll see there's a list of those sites that have been added to inventory this year, and I just wanted to share a little bit of information with you about them. It is a shorter list this year because we are focusing on the priority rarer ecosystems. So on the inventory, there is a lot of Indigenous forest, but through recent analysis, we have discovered that coastal and wetland and rarer forest types are underrepresented on the inventory. So we are deliberately looking with private landowners for those ecosystem types. We are working with QE2 to secure legal protection where possible, and we're also working with other organisations like DOC when it comes to management. So Te Kāinga o Ngā Wairere Ngāhere is in Mohakatino, and it's a large forest block with 5 waterfalls in it. And we worked with DOC this year to secure Aerial 1080 to protect that forest because DOC was treating Huti Wai, which was adjacent to the site. So council's contribution was to treat the buffer area, which allowed a larger area to be treated. Ora Downs, number 2 on the list, is a 2.6 hectare kahikatea forest, which is almost entirely gone in Taranaki, so it's a very unique and unusual stand. McDonald's Bush and Fowler's Bush are part of a cluster in North Taranaki, so something that's becoming apparent as we add kaenis to inventory is that there's developing connectivity on the landscape. So there's clusters of sites, which enables us to work more closely with communities in place, and it enables more efficient management because some of the challenges, like for ungulate control example, are reinvasion from the surrounding landscape. So if we can help the landowners work in their communities together, it definitely makes things a lot more efficient. And Fleming's wetland and Munro's wetland are in Okatu, and they're connected along the landscape, and they're in the coastal space, so they're quite rare as well. And out of those 8 sites, 7 already have biodiversity plans developed, and Manawaho Lakes will get a plan next year.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions?
Again, you mentioned QE2 when you were talking about these, and some of these are in QE2. I guess there's lots of advantages. If under this K&I, you don't actually get rates relief or anything, do you? It's got to be QE2 before you do. One of the incentives for people to really do this is that by actually doing this, they can take control of these areas and get them fenced and at special rates and various things. So we're promoting that sort of side. And indeed, also, if there are things like, shall we say, carbon matters or anything like that, even though these are in these sorts of states, they can be counted for those kind of things. So are we really, shall we say, incentivising them to do it from an economic point of view as well as from a cultural and importance of the environment point of view?
So through the chair, we are working in partnership with QE2. All sites that QE2 are now identifying in the region, they're bringing to us, and we are bringing all sites to them with landowner approval. And covenanting is very much part of the process. So when a site goes onto inventory, if the landowner is willing to undertake management, that's where the first step in that is securing legal protection. So we're working together also with the district councils. So in a lot of instances, we're able to split the economic cost 4 ways between the regional council, the landowner, QE2 and the district council. So it becomes a lot more cost effective for everyone, and it means that any investment in management is made at a site which is secure, so it can't be developed or cut down or anything like that. And in terms of the carbon credits, we're also working very closely with land management. So we have 2 or 3 sites this year that have developed biodiversity plans that we've worked in partnership with the land management team. So they're also undergoing funding for stress and reversion. So the council was able to have a dual approach to supporting management at those sites to make it financially more viable.
One other small point. I myself have, I'm not sure, 5 or 6 QE2s, and I think about 250 hectares in QE2. And people like me would be very happy to, if there were people, constituents who wanted to talk to somebody who was a landowner and who'd done this and was, it was a good thing to do and what the advantages of it were, maybe I'd be available, and I'm sure there'll be others who'd be available to just give that extra push if it was necessary.
We have had a conversation over the last 6 months about a QE2 field day. So they have been run in the past where the council gets alongside QE2 and showcases a property with, like yours, with covenants on it, to introduce landowners who are interested or also working in that space and connect them, and so sort of facilitate further discussion about what management might be feasible and also what financial support is available across the region.
I just think sometimes that if it becomes like other people they know who've done it and they say to them, look, come on, do it, you get a sometimes better response than, shall we say, council or anybody else trying to get to do it.
Yeah, it's definitely catching. We're finding that when we work with landowners in the same community, they often say, when we go onto their property, have you been to talk to my neighbour? And they'll give us their neighbour's phone number. So those clusters of K&Es and biodiversity plans are definitely strengthening the program.
And if I may make one last point, Madam Chair, there is in some of the areas that I'm in, groups getting together to form clusters of these things. So if we can actually get people to not just do their one-off QE2, if there are another lot of people, maybe 3 or 4 QE2s that are all linked, then you really are starting to cook with gas in this Gordon area. So maybe we should be perhaps possibly looking to really promote it in that kind of way if we can.
Thank you.
Donna.
I guess my just question to Lee, and great work, Lee, is are we able to fund and help these people in the way we'd like to?
She's going to give a politician's answer.
Yeah.
I'm looking at his pocket.
No, but I mean, it's just something to think about.
I definitely think when we develop a biodiversity plan, we look at the values that are at that site in terms of the ecosystem, the species that live there, and then we look at what management is required to maintain biodiversity or improve it at that site. And absolutely what the landowners can deliver and what we can afford as a council and what they can afford definitely factors into it. And often at a site we have to compromise on what management is delivered for those very reasons, and which is why not all K&Es will get a biodiversity plan. We're trying to focus on the ones with the most engaged landowners and the highest values so that we get the best outcomes for biodiversity. But landowners are very busy, they're time poor, and yeah, management is ongoing. Most of it is not one-off, and so it's multi-year pest plant or pest animal control, and so it is a big commitment from them and from us as a council, and it takes time. A plan lasts for 5 years and then they're reviewed, but the work is ongoing. It lasts for 10 or 15 or 20 years to maintain biodiversity, and we all have a limited budget, so we're trying to do that in the most effective way possible to get the best bang for the buck, to get the outcomes that we're after.
But also there's money in QE2 itself, so if you in fact have certain issues in a QE2, you can actually talk to QE2 itself, and they may provide things like help with the cost of sprays or some of those kind of things. And also, as Dan will tell you, there has been examples where pest control and this works together in areas where a plan and help and farm work and put together a sort of combination of various parties to get something done. I've had that sort of situation happen. And there is also a regular grant, isn't there, for these things that people can apply for various small items and things, which again linked up with pest control and QE2s that we can achieve. So there are small amounts of money, and it's also district councils that can help. So it's a matter of getting all the parties together and seeing what they could all contribute, because the landowner ought to contribute it on his property or her property, and the same with the district council. It's their area, and the QE2 will support, and if everybody works together, you can get extra resources to work on these things.
And we definitely do that. We've got multiple sites where there are multiple agencies contributing funding or doing the mahi. So organisations like Taranaki Kiwi Trust, we definitely tap into the Stevenson Fund that QE2 has. We're definitely having conversations regularly with the district councils about what funds they have available. Our regional biodiversity hub, Wild for Taranaki, brings everyone together and also sends out regular emails about funding that is available through other sources. So we definitely, we've got our finger in a lot of pies when we develop a biodiversity plan so that we can bring everyone together to the table to support a landowner.
Thank you. Donna, would you care to move that we receive and note the report? And
yeah, sure. And thanks, Lee.
And can we have a second to Anaru? All in favour?
Aye.
Aye.
And
Right.
moving now to the Mount Messenger bypass, Celeste.
Morning, everybody. Just make sure my computer's going. Who's got the clicker? Oh, there isn't one, so let me know when I have it. Cool, so good morning, I'm Celeste and this is Clinton Carde, and we're just here to give you a bit of an update on the Mount Messenger bypass. So the Mount Messenger bypass is a new 6-kilometre route that's going to avoid the steep, narrow, winding road that's currently over Mount Messenger. There'll be 2 bridges, one 125 metres in length and one 30 metres in length, as well as a 235 metre tunnel. Cool, so just a bit of a recap on the timeline. So in December 2017, after significant investigation with the Taranaki community in Ngāti Tama, resource consents were lodged with TRC and a notice of requirement with the MPDC. And after a lengthy court process in March 2022, 57 resource consents were granted with TRC, and the notice of requirement was confirmed, allowing for the construction to commence in May 2022. So since March 2022, a further 19 resource consents have been granted, 17 of which are related to spoil disposal, which is cut to waste material, as this was originally planned to occur on the northern property. 2 of these consents were for the temporary staging platform, which is required to build the permanent bridge over the Nini wetland. As you can see here, there's a wide variety of consents ranging from in-stream works through to discharges of sediment and air, dust to air, and vegetation removal, along with damming of surface water, clean fill and earthworks and wetlands. So TRC and MPDC share quite a few conditions in the 57 resource consents, and these relate to matters such as cultural protocols, community liaison, complaints and incidents, management plan content and certification, ecological mitigation offsetting, and for us it's the fish salvage and riparian and offset planting, as well as annual reporting. So as a result of recognising the duplicate consent conditions, TRC and MPDC recognise the need to have a coordinated response to compliance monitoring. So as a result of this, a full-time interface coordinator was employed, which is myself here, and I work between MPDC and TRC. So on the left in the green, we have my team at MPDC, which includes some monitoring staff along with terrestrial consultants, and on the other hand, we have TRC in blue. Clinton here is my compliance officer, and he does a lot of the on-site inspections. We also have a wetland ecologist and some consultants for erosion and sediment control and fresh water. So our compliance monitoring program at TRC consists of weekly inspections. Clinton goes out no less than once a week. He looks at earthworks, ensuring that the erosion and sediment control installed as per guidelines and industry standards, looking at vegetation clearance and any erodible surfaces, earthworks within streams and any fish passage, as well as assessing compliance with permitted activity rules. We also review a lot of reporting, so that can be from regular reporting as a result of rainfall events. So the team at Mount Messenger head out when there's heavy rainfall, do inspections, submit that reporting through to us, we review that. We also have annual reporting submitted through to us to review for matters such as water quality and turbidity, fish salvage and sediment monitoring in the wetland. A big part of what we do is also assessing compliance with management plans, so that's erosion and sediment control plans, which come through very regularly, as well as the overarching management plans. Yep, cool, thank you. Sorry. And over to Clint.
Morning, everyone. I'm just going to take you through these pictures and just explain what's happening. But so I'm the compliance officer. I've been on this job since November of last year, and it's definitely been an interesting role. There are 7 zones, Zone 1 being at the northern end and Zone 7 being at the southern end. And within those, there are different cuts and fill areas.
With Zone 1 being at the northern end, the whole intention was to start at the northern end and work their way through to Zone 7. But with the acquisition of the land at the north, it's changed, and so they actually started in Zone 3 and in Zone 7 and in Zone 5. And they're literally working from the inside out and back to front. And it's been quite challenging up there with some of the terrain. This is Zone 7, so this is the southern end. You can see on the left-hand side, you can see the bridge that they're just starting to form across the Mimi wetland. That's quite an ecologically significant wetland. And it crosses some Kahakatea forest in there, which is quite beautiful when you get in there. There are quite a few cuts, and there's 2 culverts within that. There's culvert 18 and culvert 17, and there's fill 14, there's cut 15 and cut 14. It's quite a long stretch, but that's the initial section you'll go through from the south. This is another view of Zone 7. So to our right, you can see cut 15. And this is all directed down to the top. You can see a sediment retention pond. So all of the stormwater, or most of the stormwater on here is treated. You can see a lot of white cloth. It's a product they used for covering exposed soils for stabilisation. They've moved away from that. They're still using it, but they're trying to reduce the cost on site. And so they're going towards methods such as hydroseeding and using coconut matting, which are cheaper products.
Are they as effective?
Yes, they are. Yeah, it takes a little bit longer for stabilisation with hydroseeding, so you've got to have a weather window, but it is effective once that grass strike takes. So this is a photo on your left of the temporary staging bridge, and this is what they have to put this in to create the actual bridge. So they need this bridge to do the works, and it goes from cut 14, which you can see in the left-hand photo, through to cut 13, which you can see on the right-hand photo. And the Mimi wetland is obviously bottom left. Yeah, it's quite a feat of engineering. One of the privileges I have on site is one of the things I enjoy is actually seeing all the fractures and the formations on the cuts. If you get the privilege of being a passenger when you do go through, take a look, because some of the fractures and you can see the formation shifts in some of the rock formations. It's quite interesting. These are the piles for the temporary staging bridge going down into the Mimi wetland. So one of the things we're monitoring is just for scour and scour from the piles going into the wetland itself, and just looking for any damage that can occur. We actually had, when they were putting some of the piles in, they had arborists bending some of the tree branches back just so that the trees weren't being damaged. So there is due care being taken. So this is Zone 5, halfway up. On the bottom left, you can see where the tunnel is going to be going in. It's quite that sharp square section. That's where the tunnel's going. And at the other end, top right, is we just saw cut 13. So all of this goes down into the Mimi wetland, and obviously we've got 2 sediment retention ponds in this site. So we have 2 forms of water. One's dirty water and one's clean water. So where they can, they'll direct clean water from off the surrounding hillsides. They'll divert that away from the site, and that limits the amount of treated stormwater that they have to deal with. And they do that with every site. This is looking north. In the top of the picture, if you can see it, is the cableway. And that comes through to the left-hand side. Above the left-hand side, this is the southern anchor point for the cableway. Obviously, one of the sediment retention ponds in the middle. Once a tunnel is formed, which you can see at the top end there, they'll be able to access Zone 3, and once the bridge is finished, they can access all the way through. The tunnel's 235 metres long, it's 30 metres high. They're going to go through first with that initial cut, if you go through to the next photo. So they'll go through like this shape. This is the top of the tunnel. They'll go through first, through to Zone 3, and then they'll come back through and they'll drop 2 metres. They're calling it benching it, and then they'll create the bottom half of the tunnel to go through again. This has its own specific, we call them SQUIMPs, which is a specific construction water management plan. So each zone has one, but this has a specific one for the tunnel. And this is the setup on the left-hand side, the setup, all the offices. They have a water treatment plant there, which deals with any water discharging from the tunnel. Because they're using a lot of shotcrete, concrete, they're lining the walls with concrete. And so making sure that that water's treated at its pH balance before it's discharged off-site. Cool, next. So zone 3, this is probably one of the most trickiest zones. At the right-hand side is where the tunnel will come out. That's just the northern side of the top of Mount Messenger. And it runs around, and top left is cut 10. So the road will actually cut through there. But we have another section which we call Lower Fill 12, and it runs down to a 5-hectare SRP. It's a monstrous sediment retention pond. It's the size of an Olympic swimming pool. And that captures all of the dirty water from the site. It's not without its challenges. They have to put in other erosion controls as well, just to reduce the amount of sediment off site. And it's still currently quite a steep site through what we call Cut 11 access track, which is the one on the section to the right-hand side, still quite steep. So we're having to work with NZTA and the Alliance to reduce erosion. So it's certainly got its challenges, this zone, but yeah, it's a good challenge. There's about 600 steps to get down to zone 3. So.
And so 600 to climb up.
Yeah. Going down's fun, but coming up's a workout. Yeah. Cool. Thanks. So this is the ink. This is where the tunnel will come out. This is cut 11. This is the tunnel trip. So at the moment, you can see they've finished for winter, and they've lined it with an impermeable membrane, and that runs through to a clean water drain. So just at the very head where the tunnel will come out. And this is looking down to Fill 12. So this is the Cut 11 access track. Like I said, it's still quite steep. It's not without its challenges. On the right-hand side, you can see they've covered and created a clean water drain to take everything off the hillside. And Cut 10. Yeah, you can see the beautiful scenery. We're with the monitoring, we're certainly careful to make sure that they're staying within the extent of the cut. So using practices like cutting in, creating a bund, and cutting in that way rather than sort of working on a flat surface where there's the ability for spoil to run down the bank. So yeah, we walk around with ngati tama, and so they're by our side as well. So they, from what I, they're happy from what I see. They're happy with what we're doing on site. So that's great to hear. But that's the extent of where they've got so far. They're starting to do some. They've started to go a little bit further into Cut 9 just to do some exploratory stuff before winter really does kick in. And that's not without its challenges at the moment. But that's the furthest cut they've got, which is sort of heading down towards Zone 1. And that's really as far as they can go before the acquisition of the land to the north. And this is the SRP within Zone 3. So this is a large sediment retention pond, 5 hectares. And it works very well. They've got a 4 bay, which captures a lot of sediment coming from the site. And they've actually got another one ahead of that as a backup, which kind of gets all that really heavy stuff. They've got the ability to lift those decants if they're finding the pond's getting dirty. Yeah, but so far all the results coming through from, they have to monitor it during what we would call rainfall trigger event. So if they get 15 mil in 1 hour or 25 mil in 24 hours, they have to go on site. They have to sample, and they have to check the clarity of the water, and they have to sample the stream as well. So there's some good monitoring going on to check that the environment's being protected. I think the next photo just shows downstream of this. So this is the outlet. So there are a number of pipes running through the site that connect to culverts that go go under the site that capture clean water as well. So it all comes out here from Zone 3.
Before we,
So-
sorry.
Sorry.
I was just going to say before we move on to any questions, one part of my part of the presentation I excluded, which was that there have been 9 non-compliances, with the majority of these have been self-notified through to the council. So the Alliance and Waka Kotahi are really good at doing that. Most of these non-compliances have had little to minor environmental effects, and action has been undertaken soon or before inspection by TRC. All of these non-compliances have been notified. Excuse me, sorry. We've had 2 abatement notices, one related to sediment discharge and failure to install ESC, and one related to not notifying council of fish salvage activities. Both of these abatement notices have been withdrawn due to sustained compliance within these areas. We've had 1 infringement fine issued recently for failure of erosion and sediment control after very wet weather event, and 1 recent non-compliance, which is in this agenda that Clint might want to speak to if there's any questions.
Did you want to speak to it?
I can if you'd like me to.
Go mad.
Yeah, so this was within so Cut 9. So they were going to access Cut 9 through Cut 10, and going into winter we had our reservations, but they came up with another idea of accessing it from the right-hand side of this sediment retention pond at the bottom, and then just creating a track up to Cut 9 so they could do some exploratory drilling, because there's been a slip up there. They wanted to know what the depth of that slip was and what they were working with. So the idea behind accessing it was just to put fill on top of the existing land, and then just forming the track over, cut some trees down and just form a track over the roots, thereby not creating any erosion issues. But unfortunately, we turned up, and the method we'd approved that methodology through a SQUAM specific construction water management plan, and we turned up, and they hadn't done what they'd said they'd done. So what we agreed wasn't what they said they'd do, so we non-comply them for that, which we believe it's really important that we've got that, I guess, trust that what they say they'll do, and what we agreed on, and we've got measures in place. So to turn up and have it change was disappointing. So we're currently going through that, just trying to find out the reasons behind why they did it, and then it'll obviously come out in the wash. But there were definitely some challenges now that they've changed it. They are now having to cover, because they've cut a pathway, they now have to cut and cover. They've had issues getting the drill rig in, so there's a few other things, slips and things like that. So it's a challenging environment with winter. So,
Would be.
yeah.
Right, Charlotte, I understand you have a question.
Oh, thanks very much, and thanks for the very comprehensive presentation. I also just looked up the project and saw they won an international award for the Environment Excellence Award with the International Soil Control Association, which I think is tantamount to just how incredible the work has been, and also our oversight of it. So congratulations on that. Question is, obviously the project's been going on for some time and has some way to go. How is the risk profile changing of an environmental incident? I imagine we're through the highest risk part of the process from now. So just interested to understand your thoughts on how the risk profile is going to change as we go forward.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the longer the project goes on, the more cumulative effects that you're going to have. At the moment, they are probably a good way through the riskiest part of work. This winter is probably going to be the riskiest winter for the entirety of the project. So Clinton and I will just be ensuring that the erosion and sediment controls that are submitted have really good consideration. We'll keep up our inspections and just hold them to account when that's not met.
Great, thanks. My apologies, I just need to go in about 5 minutes, so I'll just leave the meeting then.
Thank you, Charlotte. Anyone else got any questions?
I just guess we've seen the article in today's paper about yet another court delay, and without commenting upon that at all, is that expected to further extend, in your opinion, the time this is going to take?
I guess without knowing the ins and outs of exactly what is happening in that area, I can say that the project is due to finish 4 years from the acquisition of the northern property, and when that is, it's really uncertain. So yeah, it could be some time yet.
Okay, and can I commend you both on excellent presentation? The photos and the diagrams really tell the story, don't they? It looks amazing.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you. So if I can have someone move that we receive and note the memo, and
Well received.
you will, Mike, and Craig to second. All in favour?
Aye.
We're moving now to public excluded. Can I have someone move that we